Welcome to What is Going for new thought from the edge of Each week on OMTimes flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandy Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Here is your host, Sandy Sedgbeer.
Hello. Every once in a while, a person steps forward on the world stage whose gifts and abilities are so far beyond what we ordinarily encounter that the words just don't exist to fittingly describe their impact on the lives of others. Such a person, in my experience, is Suzy Miller, a visionary speaker, author, telepathic communicator, multidimensional seer, and a pioneering founder of the Awesomism Practitioner Process. Suzy Miller's extraordinary insights and leadership shifted the perception of what many regarded as a devastating disorder from autism to awesomism. And in taking something that had been made synonymous with the word broken and revealing its hidden potential, she has transformed the lives and the outlook for thousands of parents and children worldwide. Now, in her latest body of work, The Journey Back to Love, Suzy Miller is once again weaving her transformative magic on our perceptions about and our experience of love. Founded on the experiences and insights gained from the past 17 years of pioneering work with a higher consciousness of thousands of energetically sensitive kids, the Journey Back to Love process dramatically shifts all the places where so many of us secretly believe we are broken because of a lack of love in our past and or our present, and shifts our perceptions to I am love. Suzy Miller joins us tonight to tell us what that means, how she knows what she knows, and how all of us who have ever, even momentarily, felt unloved and unworthy of love can move beyond our childhood wounds and experience love, life, and living in a greatly expanded way. Suzy Miller, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Suzy, from the consciousness of autism to the consciousness of love, you do like taking on some of the bigger human challenges, don't you?
Yeah, I do like that.
So tell me, how does a former pediatric speech language pathologist with a master's degree in education wind up pioneering a shift in our perceptions of autism from an individual disorder to a collective revolution in human consciousness, while collaborating with a Stanford University professor emeritus and physicist on leading-edge intention experiments focused on healing and the elevation of collective human consciousness? I mean, how does that happen?
How did that happen? That's a really good question. Yeah, I think that life has a plan for all of us, and my particular plan was to meet a child diagnosed with autism when I was in private practice as a speech-language pathologist. And he basically kind of opened me up to clairaudience and clairsentience, clairvoyance. And as he did that, he also kind of created an invitation to me to help him integrate his light body into his physical body, or what I would say now is his divinity into his humanity. And so I think, life always gives us these beautiful little twists and turns and asks us, are you willing to go for a ride? And I was willing. So that started the whole information around the awesomism piece and, talking to him and telepathically communicating with him, seeing various aspects of him that were far beyond what we might perceive as broken or an autism diagnosis, really kind of led me to do this with all kinds of other children and ultimately with the collective consciousness of children diagnosed with autism in the first place. And as that progressed, I really became really deeply invested in supporting others who would like to have those same kinds of experiences with the kids. And as part of that, I did meet Dr. William Tiller, and we really collaborated on a really beautiful intention experiment, which was basically to, again, support the integration of children diagnosed with autism so that their divinity, if you will, or their essence and the spirit aspect of them could more fully interface with their humanity.
Now, the intention experiments, I mean, Bill Tiller was the originator of the intention experiments. Many people have gone on since then to work with that, but he was the originator, and he had created a device that he called an unimprinted intention device, and then they would imprint it with an intention. Now, you and I had an interview about this some years ago, and indeed Bill Tiller was on that interview, when just after this experiment started, and we had a number of parents calling into that show, and what was being revealed was that even before the parents that wanted to be participating in this experiment and their children, even before the experiment was officially started, these children began to show marked changes in their awareness, consciousness, maybe not their consciousness, but certainly their behaviour. So
right.
What was stopping those children display that beforehand?
I think that, any time that you have a child that has a certain diagnosis, any parent has a particular perceptual reality around what that means. It's like when you're given a diagnosis like that for your child, it kind of automatically, we hold a particular perception around what that diagnosis means. And the minute we hold that perception, we also create a limitation as to what can be experienced, for that child. And, parents don't do it on purpose. It's just, all of the kind of medical information and things like that have been saying for a long time that, autism is this, these are the parameters. This is what is available and is not available for an individual within this diagnosis. And that perceptual reality creates a particular experience for those children. So as these parents were coming onto the call and getting information about this intention broadcast that we were going to offer, they were already starting to loosen up their perception of what might be possible for their children. They were willing to see beyond what might been the mainstream kind of point of view regarding that. And because they were willing to do that, in some cases their children were already showing them that, you're on the right path. This will actually change something. So perception's a big thing.
So it's the lack of awareness or consciousness or enough consciousness in the world around them that keeps them in that place.
I think that any time that anybody holds a certain perception around you, like, if you've noticed, I'm sure we've all noticed this, that if somebody holds a certain perceptual reality around who they think you are or how they think you are, even to the best of your ability, if you try to show them a different point of view, if they're really vested in that perception, they're going to try to lump whatever behaviors you have or whatever conversations you're having in through that particular lens. And so as we begin to, just like with autism to awesomism, as we can begin to loosen up the perception of what this might mean as we create new potentials and possibilities, then new potentials and possibilities can actually exist. I mean, we're all amazingly powerful creators, right? So what we say is, and that's our limitation, but it's also our potential for some pretty amazing growth and some pretty amazing experiences.
Now, I know that you've personally facilitated the growth and mastery of hundreds of Awesomism practitioners and thousands of private clients worldwide. What was it in your experience with the children that inspired you to create a journey back to love?
Well, it's like that population of children, although, again, they look like they're quote-unquote disordered according to our human perceptions, they really hold such a vast, the love that they hold as they're part of their collective consciousness is really amazing, and it offers us all kinds of potentials and possibilities. So I think it really was just tapping into that consciousness and seeing that they were so much more than we perceived them to be, and what they were was actually love. That's really where they were coming from.
But was it really that easy, or, was this, that was an understanding, and then various things happened to, grow this understanding into something that, we could all do with?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, like you say, it's, hundreds of practitioners and thousands of, clients all over the place. And what I watched over and over again was this opportunity to break into a different perception. And instead of holding our hearts closed, because we feel like, in that case, an autistic individual is disordered, and therefore we kind of create all kinds of boundaries around how we're going to interact with them. What I noticed as parents, as the love that the parent really wanted to express for that child could be opened back up, then something else can happen. And as the parent themselves were able to move into some sense of self-love, it's like a lot of our limitations have to do with the fact that we'll only allow ourselves to love ourselves just so much, because of whatever we are perceiving as wrong. So.
You're listening to What is Going On. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, and I'm speaking with author, multidimensional communicator, Suzy Miller, about the most mysterious, multi-layered and misunderstood topic we humans have to deal with, love. We'll continue the conversation after the break.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the OMTimes Experts program. With OMTimes Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
My name is Meera Batra, and this is How I Live United. Many families have come to America for a better life. I advocate for these families with United Way. United Way empowers them to see opportunities available. We help them get involved with their kids' schools and network within the community. My name is Meera Batra. I help families see opportunity and succeed. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Go to liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Suzy Miller, we know that many, many people spend their lives believing that love is happening to them, and that to love and be loved, they need to change or fix themselves or those around them. You say that love is an invitation, not just an invitation to feel good, but an invitation to be all that we feel we can be. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's like my theory anyway is that, love, that life gives us one invitation after another throughout our whole life experience, from the moment we get here until we leave this planet, to love beyond what we've loved before. And in some cases, what we are, in most cases, I think what people attribute this to is that maybe some kind of trigger comes up, or maybe some kind of discomfort, some kind of energy that makes us feel like we're wrong or we're bad or something needs to be fixed within us. And from my vantage point anyway, that is simply an invitation to feel something that might not have gotten felt before. And then, but once we have felt it, once we've actually allowed ourselves to have the experience of whatever that brings up, we're also invited to a choice. We're invited to choose what we would like next. And I think what happens for a lot of people is we have one invitation to love ourselves beyond what we've been able to love before. And most people, they immediately feel almost a resistance or a rejection of whatever that trigger is that's coming up in their experience. And the trigger itself can almost be an unconscious pattern of, oh my gosh, there must be something wrong with me. So that's the first thing that most people do. It's like, no. If a trigger is coming up, I'm going to push back against that trigger and then try to push it away. But of course, it doesn't get pushed away. And this is how we create lifelong patterns of, certain types of triggering. So what I've noticed is that we've got these triggers, and if we will, number one, allow ourselves to feel whatever comes up from those triggers, we've processed some of that early childhood patterning or something. But more often than not, once we process that particular trigger, then most of us like to go back to feeling good pretty quickly. It's like, okay, I had a trigger and I felt it for a little bit, but the mental body, the emotional body, it just wants to get back to feeling good, because we've also equated always feeling good with some type of love. Oh, we must be lovable if we always feel good. But what I notice is much more powerful for people is, as that trigger arises and as we allow ourselves to feel it, the very next thing that typically happens is we typically we go back to trying to feel good. And most of the way we go back to try to feel good is we feel whatever we feel, the anger, the frustration, the sadness, and then we have a tendency to then project that energy out to those that created the trigger. And all of a sudden it kind of, at least for a short period of time, it lets our bodies feel a little bit better. It's like, I got to get rid of that. And through this projection, what's interesting is if you'll stay with the projection part, if you won't allow yourself to project, and if you'll feel whatever feelings come in from that, then you have a real invitation to what I call be liberated by love. So it's a loving act to allow the feeling to come in and to embody that feeling, and it's a deeper act of love, or maybe even a potential of liberation through love, to allow yourself to kind of go a layer deeper than that. And if we will, we notice very quickly that we get out of these recurrent patterns that most of us see in our lifetime. Our childhoods play out in our adulthoods, almost for every human being on the planet, right?
Yeah. I love that phrase, to love beyond what you loved before. It's also a huge challenge. Love, we all treat love a bit like a gold or precious commodity, and we hold it to ourselves, and we're very careful about who we share that with, because, as you say, we've all been hurt so many times. But what you're saying is, let it all out, basically.
Right. Well, and I don't know about you, but I know in my own experience, and as I've talked to several people, I think if we're really honest with ourselves, none of us like to blame. None of us, if we're really honest with ourselves, when we go into the blame game, or when we try to make ourselves just feel good around a particular situation, it never quite really feels good. It might alleviate some of the pressure or the stress of the emotional energy. But it never really, as a full body experience, it never really feels good. And I think that the reason that is that, you know, we, at the core of our being, we are all love, and we all want to express love fully. And so when we fall short of that mark, there's some little niggling within us that kind of says, you know, you're not getting the opportunity to love as fully as you really want to love. And so every time we put up a boundary, every time we put up a barrier, every time we project our energy out onto somebody else, you know, it's almost like, yes, it makes us feel better for a second, but no, it doesn't actually give us that sense of I am love, right? And that's the invitation that I think we get from birth to death. And when we really understand that, we can be liberated by love. We can fully step into the expressions of ourselves that we're really meant to express here. And that doesn't mean that we don't set boundaries and that we don't, you know, kind of acknowledge our own needs and that kind of thing. It means that we do that from an authentic place of love, of self-love.
When I looked at the description of A Journey Back to Love on your website, I was intrigued. I mean, you posed a number of questions at the beginning, and you talked very openly about, you know, to your audience, people who traverse multi-universes, and you say that so many people, and I'm interpreting that as, you know, people who have done spiritual work, they have multidimensional experiences, and they like to have those because they're seeking a more evolved version of themselves, you know, that they knew was possible when they arrived here. So they tend to stay out of their bodies a lot. They do not want to be in their bodies. They do not want to feel being human and all the pain that goes along with that.
That's right. And, you know, I think that what happens for most of us, you know, in our innocence, we have some kind of, you know, early wounding. Everybody has had some kind of experience. And in my practice, especially working with some of the practitioners and in my own experience, you know, sometimes our childhoods, they're a gift and they're a curse in the fact that, you know, the gift is that a lot of times we do kind of go up and out of our bodies. We look for much more refined aspects of ourselves. We look for kind of what we kind of look for the love or the awareness of love within ourselves in, you know, in all kinds of, like you say, in the multiverse, right? But what typically happens for somebody who, you know, gains skills like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, whatever, is that expression in that reality feels very good. Just like children diagnosed with autism, you know, they're not quite embodied, right? They're not quite fully present in this human physical reality, but they're really gifted in the spiritual realms. Well, that's not unlike all of us. I mean, all of us are somewhat disassociated from our innocence for very good reasons. You know, this can be a kind of a harsh experience. This can be kind of a harsh existence, especially if you came to the world fairly sensitive to begin with. But those same sensitives kind of go out into the omniverse, and they have all of these amazing skill sets. And what I notice is a lot of those individuals stay out there. And if they stay out there, it's wonderful. They get all kinds of amazing information, and they have all kinds of insights and things like that. But what I noticed is that those same individuals that have all of these amazing gifts really have human lives that they don't really enjoy all that much. You know, it's like there's still a bifurcation or a separation. So they can have all of these amazing skill sets, but those skill sets are not able to support, their strengths are not able to support some of their challenges in the human dimension. And part of the reason why I created the Journey Back to Love is that it really is an invitation and an opportunity to kind of integrate those two worlds so that we can use our strengths to overcome our weaknesses. And a lot of that I did learn through children diagnosed with autism because, if you take that reality, those children are kind of having a hard time just integrating into the human experience, right? Just being fully present within this human reality. And then the Journey Back to Love kind of says, okay, now we've got people who may be willing to be more fully embodied in the human reality, but they still have some of these early traumas that almost get re-traumatized as they kind of come back and try to offer their skill sets to the very humanity that they would like to offer them to.
You channel the collective consciousness of the children. What do they say to you about love?
It's really interesting because there's this whole focus for them on self-love. They've talked a lot about self-love and the willingness to actually grow through various aspects or grow into various aspects of ourselves by being completely present with what is. So from that vantage point, like I was saying earlier, most of us, something comes up in our now moment, what is, and a lot of times that's something that's right in our face, right? It's like something that's triggering us. And they were really saying that, just be willing to be with that, kind of like I was sharing earlier. It's be willing to allow that because it builds coherence in your field.
You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, and I'm speaking with visionary speaker, author, telepathic communicator, and pioneering founder of Awesomism and the Journey Back to Love, Suzy Miller. Our topic tonight is that seemingly elusive four-letter word that lies at the root of most people's insecurities about themselves, love. We'll be back in a moment with more.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hi, I found a toy dinosaur over on the playground by Smith Street. It had this phone number on it, and, well, I just wanted to make sure the dinosaur made it back to its little owner.
When I found the little sippy cup, I just had to give you a call. It's for a kid,
I know my son gets super attached to the smallest things, even a fire truck, and I'd be happy to drop it off.
We'd do anything for kids, yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Suzy Miller, you say that we can learn to love the whole of our life experience and see through the eyes of innocence. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that actually taking the opportunities that are given us, because, in my view, it's all love. It's like the innocence that we originally were when we came here was love. Anything that asked us or maybe pushed us away from that innocence was love. Anything that we learned along the way was love, and then there's this amazing invitation to bring that all back in order to love in ways that we might not even know were possible. And so to me, it's this invitation that to actually allow something to penetrate, to kind of come back into our experience. And so a lot of us won't allow certain things into our experience because we perceive them as, especially we won't allow certain feelings, emotions into our experience because we perceive them as negative. And what's interesting is to the degree that we hold out negativity and are not willing to actually maybe feel some of the things that arise within us is paradoxically to the same degree that we're actually not able to feel the depth of our skill sets or the depth of the love that we actually are. And so, I was talking earlier with a group today on the journey back to love, and we were discussing the fact that, we have a negative experience show up, and we hold that at arm's length and say we don't want to feel that, experience that, or whatever. But also what happens is sometimes as we're out traversing the multiverse, we learn all kinds of amazing things about ourselves. And we learn that we are much more than we perceive ourselves to be. We learn that we actually are love. But what's interesting is when that reality and the human reality are not merged, more often than not, even when we hear something like that, we won't allow that to fully, we won't fully embrace that. And if we do fully embrace it, we kind of keep it in a place of superiority, so then it becomes that kind of spiritual experience where you have all of these skill sets, but everybody that doesn't have those skill sets are somehow perceived as less than. When I hear things like that, what all that really says is that the spiritual aspect of us or the unseen aspects of us, the divinity of us, have not been fully merged with the humanity. Because when those two are put together, there's really this amazing opportunity, like I say, to express love, to express compassion. But of course, we have to go through that integration process ourselves before we can offer that to anybody else. Does that make sense?
It does, but there are people who would take issue, react very strongly to what you said earlier about seeing everything as love, because, some people have had tremendously painful experiences in their childhood, all kinds of abuse. And it's, how can you possibly get someone to look at that and say, that's love?
Right. Well, I had my own challenges with that as well, and I'm not saying that any of this is easy, and I'm not saying that we can necessarily see this, as it is occurring. Our whole life trajectories, our destinies, if you will, where love wants to take us, really has to play out, throughout our lifetimes. And it's not until, for most of us, it's not until we mature spiritually, emotionally, mentally, that we can really invite this level of awareness to us. But the interesting piece is that, say we have a childhood trauma, and of course, as the child, we can't see it as love. But what happens is as we mature and we grow into our adulthood, that's why these patterns come up over and over and over again. That's love. Those patterns coming up over and over again are basically love saying, hey, I understand you weren't able to love that when it was happening, but that was part of your destiny. It was part of your life path. And we're going to give you an opportunity now. Love is going to give you an opportunity now to revisit that, to feel it, to choose again, and love will keep doing that until that particular pattern has been completely anchored back in love, right? So yes, I completely understand it. In the moment that certain things are happening, it's really challenging. But the other thing that we have to be aware of is that love understands, right? Love knows when we're ready to process something. So have you ever noticed that the people who have some kind of trauma as a child, all of a sudden maybe they'll have a post-traumatic stress experience, right? And that post-traumatic stress experience, it comes up whenever it comes up. It's not like people are going, okay, I'm going to have my post-traumatic stress experience when I'm 30, because by then I'll be able to handle it. No, it doesn't happen like that. It's like love knows exactly when to offer that opportunity back to us. Love knows exactly when we have the skill sets and the maturity to deal with some of the experiences that we had early on. And again, we can accept that invitation from love and actually work with it as it arises, or we can kind of go, nope, don't, I won't take that invitation right now. And when we don't take that invitation, that's fine, because love will just wait a little bit longer, and it will create another opportunity. More often than not, at the same time, love is giving us all kinds of awarenesses about ourselves as we grow in our maturity, or as we develop maybe other skill sets that we hadn't considered, in our innocence. Then it's almost like those particular skill sets are also love saying, here's the tools. Here's some other ways that you can begin to think about yourself, so that you have that kind of in your back pocket as these other things arise. But if we really begin to understand that our whole world, the worlds that we've created, are basically just love in its many facets, then we begin to accept these invitations that don't always feel so comfortable, right? And we also begin to accept and actually embody some of the invitations that are that give us greater awareness of who we really are. Does that make sense?
You're talking about love as if it's an entity. Are you talking about love as source, love as God?
Yeah, it's, to me, love is the beautiful neutrality that you would consider as source or as God. It's like, that energy, the energy of, we think that love is meant to make us feel all warm and fuzzy, right? And in my point of view, love is the neutrality that it's like love does not care whether it has to, kind of give you a little kick upside the head, or whether it needs to put its arms around you. What love actually wants is for you to be the fullest expression of yourself, and it wants you to get on board with that as quickly as possible. It wants you to be liberated from your own limitations, so that you can actually express yourself as fully as possible. As each one of us does that, then, think about what kind of world that brings. Think about what kind of offering that is for humanity, and especially right now with a humanity that is really getting to see a lot of its more shadowy sides, right? To me, this is one giant collective invitation by love to say, choose again. And we are also noticing that as that big pattern of unconscious wounding of that those limitations are coming to the surface. Also, listen to some of the songs right now. Listen to some of the the people in their creativity or in their desire for a new humanity. I mean, they're talking about love. They're talking about it in every way they know how. And again, it's like this beautiful invitation. You know, the love is there in the creativity of some of the musicians right now and some of the, you know, people that are getting this information out there on a big scale, at the same time that the collective consciousness is kind of bringing up their wounding. So love does both. You know, love does both in its neutrality.
How do you take someone who's been very wounded and help them reach a place of neutrality? What are you doing, you know, to facilitate that?
It really is a moment-by-moment process. I mean, I think that this is not, you know, a 7-step to heaven kind of thing. This is not, you know, 10 steps to feeling great. It's really it's an invitation. So what I do is through the Journey Back to Love as a course and through private sessions, I create an invitation to people to really integrate a broad spectrum of themselves. And, you know, sometimes when we have to go back and forth, sometimes we have to go from the wounding to, or where we feel like we're inferior to where we feel we're superior. And it's really, that's the other thing. I mean, love is a really beautiful dance. And what I notice, however, is when we do this in a group, when we do it in something like the Journey Back to Love as a course, there's so many energies that are working simultaneously. It's almost like the person that can do a particular piece of the puzzle is supporting that within the collective, and somebody else is doing that. So love can work in that way as well.
You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandy Sedgbear, and I'm speaking with visionary speaker and author Suzy Miller about her new program, Everyday Avatars, The Journey Back to Love. We'll be back in a few moments.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Spiritual, metaphysical, green living, psychic, alternative healing, life coaching. Do any of these or similar terms apply to your business or cause? If so, you are in a niche market with a very specific audience. Conscious Gate PR is the world's leading conscious public relations agency. With a global reach of over 4 million and growing, we offer comprehensive media campaigns to our targeted market. Learn more at ConsciousGatesPR.com. Conscious marketing for conscious minds.
Hi everyone, this is Shay Parker, the host of Best of the Best, which airs live right here on IOM Radio every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm super excited to bring you expert guest hosts, spiritual discussions, free psychic readings, and so much more. I can promise that you will not want to miss this one-of-a-kind, fun, yet touching, down-to-earth show. Join us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific on OTR-FM. This is Shay Parker, and I can't wait to see you there.
If you own a gun, you have a full-time responsibility. When you aren't using it, be sure it can't get into the hands of curious children, troubled teenagers, a thief, or anyone else who might misuse it. Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Remember, always, lock it up. For more information on firearm storage safety, visit ncpc.org. This message brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Suzy Miller, tell us about Everyday Avatars. I mean, you present a number of different kinds of events under this title, but it's also like the umbrella title or concept for the Journey Back to Love. What is an everyday avatar to you?
An everyday avatar to me is somebody that has kind of gone out, from their innocence into these other experiences and worlds and learned all kinds of things in those places and spaces, and actually been willing to bring that information all the way back into their humanity. So an everyday avatar to me is somebody who has gone out, but who has also been willing to descend or come back into the human condition and offer what they actually are in the awareness of their being as love for all sentient consciousness. So, yeah, an avatar is one who descends, who brings all that they're aware of, all that they know, back into this reality. And in the past, we've had maybe single avatars. We've had maybe a Buddha or a Christ or a saint or a sage or something along those lines that we might consider that avatar kind of energy. But I believe that right now, where humanity is, we have the opportunity to have everyday avatars. We have everyday individuals who have learned all kinds of amazing awareness. And if they will grant humanity the opportunity to actually experience that awareness, then, that requires them to descend and to use those same skill sets to kind of come back into their humanity and then offer that as love to whomever they can.
You did a pretty phenomenal thing when you set out to change the perceptions of autism. I mean, people would have thought you were crazy. Many people probably still do. But there's many people who are incredibly grateful to you. And that must have taken a lot of courage to be that lonely voice out there in the wilderness. It's always hard to be the pioneer. Let me ask you, do you really think that you can do for love what you did for autism?
Well, now you're scaring me. Yeah, no. It's interesting because, I think if somebody had told me ahead of time that autism would really get, there'd be a new perception around autism, in the face of the information shared through Awesomism, that would have been a little bit daunting for sure. But I think the other thing about love is that love gives you just what you need when you need it. And so this time I think I am setting out a little bit more consciously to change our perception about love and to allow ourselves to actually embody love as we are meant to embody it. And so, yeah, do I know exactly how that's all going to play out and how we're going to go about that moment by moment? No, I really don't. But what I do after the Autism to Awesomism piece, I really do trust that with the awareness that's been gained and with the intention that it actually is possible. And so, again, we have to be willing to make mistakes. We have to be willing to fail. But I think it's probably a decent goal, so I definitely like what I'm seeing so far with the people that I've been working with around this. And the other thing, too, is what dawns on me over and over again, if we can truly begin to shift the perception of love as some kind of external force that makes us feel good, or love as something that we're continually seeking because we feel like we're broken. If we can really shift the awareness, our awareness and our perception that everything in our experience is love, and as we talked about earlier, if love is the neutrality of source, the neutrality of God or divinity, whatever you want to call that, it really begins to beg the question, are we separate from God? Are we separate from source? And so this shifting this perception and even playing with this concept. Well, what if, just that question, what if everything from the moment I hit this planet until the moment I leave it, and before and after most likely as well, but in this lifetime, if every single aspect of that is love, then what does that actually mean? What does that mean about us as creators? What does that mean about us as in our relationship to Source? I think it's a really good question. And just like when we begin to ask any of the deeper questions, the moment we're even willing to ask the question, love will open some doors. Love will absolutely begin to show you where that might be a more expansive perception, the healthier perception, and a very healing perception.
We hear again and again, so many times, people, especially people at the end of life, saying, it's all about love. Love is all there is. And in fact, you actually say it on your website in the description for the Journey Back to Love. And you say that the Journey Back to Love can help us support our awareness that love is all there is and enhance our capacity to create from that awareness. Tell me what happens when we create from that awareness. What have you experienced?
Well, I experience a kind of liberation. I experience an opportunity to make choices both for myself and to support others in making choices that really come from that vantage point. That, and when we actually make choices from love, from what I'm calling a deep connection to self or that experience, we have a tendency to, those experiences have a tendency to be much healthier. They're, a lot of times when we create from what we think is love and we're looking for love, we're grabbing for love, kind of the old definition of love, a lot of times we end up creating more turmoil in our own lives. We create more stress in our own lives and in the lives of others. When we really start to integrate this and when we really start to ask this question, what if everything is love? And that starts to be our experience. Things start to open up for us. We have a tendency to be able to be much more clear about what is loving towards ourselves and making choices from that place, and also offering information to others from a place of love, truly, from a place of neutrality, I guess is a good way to say it.
Before we bring the show to a close, you're currently running the Journey Back to Love program, and you've got a number of people enrolled in it, as you mentioned earlier. What sort of things are happening to people as they go through this?
Yeah, it's, I think a lot of people have talked about certain patterns that they held, and maybe they've been in resistance to allowing a greater experience or expression of love in their lives. Or maybe they have had certain woundings that put up certain walls. It's like as we move through this process, those experiences and those walls have a tendency to just simply dismantle. They have a tendency to simply disintegrate. And I think that the reason for that is a lot of the process is, it's held in love, it's held in neutrality, but there's also this invitation to be very authentic in this course. And I think that because the container is such a loving container, such a neutral container, it really does invite people to a level of authenticity that they might not get to experience somewhere else, and I think one of the first things in order to get to this awareness of love, other than asking a question like, well, what if it's all love? I think another really great tool for most of us is, in any given moment, can we simply be authentic with what is? Can we tell ourselves the truth about what is? I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm whatever, but at least tell ourselves the truth. Makes a huge difference.
Suzy Miller, it's been fascinating speaking with you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Suzy Miller's book, Awesomism, A New Way to Understand the Diagnosis of Autism, is available from Amazon, and you can also find it, I believe, at her website at SuzyMiller.com, where you will find information about everyday avatar events and the Journey Back to Love program. You've been listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, and I really hope you'll join me again next week when I will be speaking to Anthony Peake, author of the book Opening the Doors of Perception. Till then, it's goodbye from me.